And now that we've gotten through all the subscores, what I'll do is sort of we'll take a look at how does this work? How does this all come together? And we're going to walk through a fictional mangrove restoration project in Brazil. We'll call it Costa Azul. And so, Kim, can you tell us a little bit about the project?
Yes. So the Costa Azul project, it was established in 2014 by a local environmental group that wanted to restore Brazil's unique coastal mangroves. So the project is based in an area where these coastal habitats had previously, been intact, but were destroyed by aquaculture, shrimp farming. And the mangrove forests, they're not coming back naturally via natural regeneration. So this environmental group is working to restore these coastal mangrove habitats. Let's now examine each of the subscores, starting with climate impact. So over to you, Amishi.
Yeah, so we gave this guy a 98 out of 100 for climate impact. So now it's in its 10th year. We can evaluate the project's climate impact using geospatial monitoring to see that the saplings planted in 2014 are effectively storing carbon and growing. The project also uses a regional biological model to predict growth rates and carbon storage, which are superior to just general models. However, the project lost a couple points because the developers used this conservative but generalized soil organic carbon storage estimate instead of using a more regional specific data for their baseline. So they got docked a couple points there. Additionally, while geospatial monitoring is employed, the limited temporal coverage during the establishment stage reduces that confidence in the growth rate of newly planted mangroves. We'd want to see a dense sampling to have high confidence that those newly planted mangroves are meeting expected growth rates. Kim, back to you if you can speak to additionality.
Yes, so this project receives a 100 out of 100 points for additionality. And that's because, first, there were no local laws, regulations, or policies in place that were either incentivizing or requiring the restoration effort. Second, as mentioned in the introduction, the area has experienced pretty significant land conversion and coastal mangrove habitat destruction because of the aquaculture shrimp farming industry. And then third, the project has no funding or other revenue streams other than from the sale of carbon credits. In addition to that, satellite imagery shows that kind of similar land plots in the area remain cleared and degraded after serving the shrimp industry for some time. So if the project weren't present on the site, the mangroves or other vegetation, they wouldn't come back and grow back on their own. You need active restoration in order to restore the area. I'll pass it over to Brian now to talk about certification score.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, so where certification is concerned, we have a somewhat lower, but still fairly high score of 88 out of 100. And, I mean, generally still looking pretty good, mainly because this project does use a really well-founded and respected methodology for seagrass restoration projects, whereas VM33 methodology. But then, the biggest issue here is simply just a lack of more recent monitoring data. Some data sets, that exist from the project area from 2021, but nothing more recently than that. So, to really score a project very high for certification, we're looking for that really consistent monitoring cadence on the right basis, at least an annual basis. So that's the kind of the rationale for the score there. And I'll kick it over to Nan now to talk about the principal durability score.
Thanks, Brian. So this project scores 73 out of 100 for principal durability. So as I mentioned earlier, the principal durability scope score reflects both operational sustainment and biophysical durability. So for operational sustainment, we compute a score based on the project's 60-year commitment and then 10-year track record. So as mentioned before, the success of an established project is seen as an indicator of ongoing commitment and support for a project. So this project's calculated score reflects that. The project has a relatively lower score for biophysical durability, so that component of this subscore. And that's just because of the temporary nature of carbon storage in woody biomass, and particularly the high rate of carbon cycling in tropical coastal systems. So overall, the project score of 73 is still on the higher end for nature-based projects, but this is a relatively lower principal durability within nature-based compared to more durable forms of carbon storage like biochar or a tech-based removal solution.
Awesome. Thank you. So the last subscore for Costa Azul is future delivery risk. And so we've rated this one at a 71 out of 100. So there you go. Future delivery risks for nature-based projects are always higher than for engineered removals, right? Because the nature-based projects are just exposed to natural disturbances and changing management practices, right? That's just kind of a fact. But, nevertheless, this project is restoring an arid mangrove system that's less prone to extreme environmental changes than other coastal ecosystems might be. So it got, there's a balance there. At the same time, there are still some geopolitical risks, right? Pending national legislation could negatively impact existing carbon projects. And, in Brazil, we know that the government's ability to enforce land use, frankly, remains kind of suspect. So overall, are the different subscores for this project, right? Oh, here we go. Computed up to an 88%, which we graded as an A in our book. We believe this project overall is very high quality, but we also want to be transparent and have our clients understand that, like all projects, it does have risks. So so that's Costa Azul. Hopefully we've given you a clear sense of how the various subscores are computed and what goes into them and how they're rolled up into the overall score. And so as we've seen, each project in our portfolios receives an overall score comprising the different subscores described above, or the different subscores that we've just laid out here and described to you. Rubicon. So if you're a client at Rubicon, you can view on our customer portal the score and subscores of each project in our inventory through our online platform, and you can compare them with each other to make informed decisions about your carbon credit portfolio. And we update the subscores regularly as new information becomes available. In the long term, what we'd like to do is, we've got these 5 subscores, but it would be great if we could expand our evaluation criteria, right? We've really only talked about the carbon metrics here, mostly, right, with some sort of developer reputation and operational ability. But we'd like to capture additional benefits, right? Like air and water quality, social impact, and other things like biodiversity, once we're confident in our ability to measure those benefits using science and, scientifically sound approaches. We'd be more than happy to talk a lot more about this framework with anyone. Certainly, if you're a buyer and you want to learn more about how we evaluate projects, please go ahead, take a look at our website. We want to thank you for your time and attention. But before we go, we do have a couple questions that have come up from various quarters as we've been discussing the RCIF with our clients and our friends. And so what I'd like to do is just kind of throw out a couple of these questions for the team to answer, and we'll see sort of we'll get okay, time out.
Hey Jen, if you want, just go back to the part where you start talking about the questions, or maybe actually go back to the start of this slide, even if it's a few extra minutes of recording. Yeah.
And Matthew, should we stop presenting these slides so it's just our faces?
Yeah, maybe we should. So it's just our faces.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. You ready? Take 2. Okay. So, at the end of the day,